The coffee shop on the corner of Maple Street was one of those places where silence seemed softer than anywhere else. The hum of the espresso machine, the quiet clinking of cups, and the faint sound of jazz drifting through the speakers wrapped the room in warmth. It was a place people came to either be alone with their thoughts, or to share them with someone they trusted. Daniel sat by the window, staring blankly at the rain that tapped against the glass. His untouched cappuccino had gone cold minutes ago, but he didn't care. He wasn't here for coffee. He came here because it was one of the few places that didn't demand anything of him. Life had grown heavy, unbearably so. At 32, he carried the silence of loss in his chest. His fiancée, Claire, had passed away in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him hollow. He came here every Saturday, as if the routine kept him from falling apart completely. Today was no different, or so he thought. "Excuse me," a small voice interrupted, soft but trembling with courage. "Can I sit here?" Daniel blinked, pulled out of his daze. He looked down. Standing beside his table was a little girl, no older than 8 or 9. She was holding a tray with a cup of hot chocolate too big for her tiny hands. Her brown hair was tied into 2 messy braids, and her pale cheeks carried the faint blush of the cold outside. Daniel glanced around. The shop was almost full, every seat occupied. Somehow, his table, built for 2, was the only one with space left. "Of course," he said finally, his voice hoarse from disuse. He gestured to the chair opposite him. The little girl smiled, a smile so pure it seemed to brighten the dim corner where they sat. She carefully climbed onto the chair, setting her cup down with a clink. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel nodded. He wasn't used to children. He wasn't used to company, period. He thought she'd sit in silence, sip her drink, and that would be the end of it. But instead, the girl looked straight at him with eyes so alive, so curious, that he felt strangely seen. "You look sad," she said simply. Daniel almost choked on his breath. "What? You look sad," she repeated, tilting her head like a bird. Like you lost something important." He stared at her, stunned. Most adults hadn't dared to say such words to him directly, but here was a child, peeling open his chest with innocent honesty. He forced a small smile. "That's very observant of you." She sipped her hot chocolate, leaving a foamy mustache above her lip. "I know about sadness," she said, as though it were an everyday subject. "It sits in your chest and makes it hard to breathe sometimes." Daniel's smile faded. He didn't know how to respond. The girl swung her legs under the table, humming softly. Then she added, almost casually, "I'm sick too." His heart skipped. He studied her more closely now, the way her hands trembled slightly, the faint circles under her eyes, the thinness of her wrists. A realization hit him like a stone. This child wasn't just talking about colds or fevers. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she replied with a grin, as though she hadn't just confessed something heavy. "What's yours?" "Daniel." "Daniel," she repeated, tasting the syllables like candy. "That's a strong name. You don't look strong, though." He let out a soft chuckle, perhaps the first genuine one in months. "You're very honest." "I have to be," Lily said with a shrug. "Doctors like it when you tell the truth. They say it helps them help you." Daniel swallowed. The innocence of her tone clashed painfully with the gravity of her words. For a moment, silence lingered between them. Rain streaked down the window beside him, and Daniel wondered why fate had placed this fragile child in his path. "What are you reading?" Lily asked, pointing to the closed book by his elbow. He glanced at it. The Great Gatsby. He hadn't really been reading it, just carrying it around like a shield. "It's a story," he said. "Is it happy?" He hesitated. "Not exactly." "Good," Lily said. "Happy stories are boring. Sad stories are real." Her words sent a shiver through him. How could someone so young speak with such depth? They sat together, sipping their drinks, his cold, hers warm. Daniel found himself watching her more than he meant to, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she looked out at the rain, how she tapped her fingers to a rhythm only she could hear. "Do you come here a lot?" he asked finally. "Sometimes," Lily said. "When Mom's busy talking to the doctors, I sneak in here. The lady at the counter gives me hot chocolate for free." Daniel felt his chest tighten. A little girl, sick, slipping away from hospitals just to drink cocoa in a coffee shop, it broke something inside him. "Does your mom know you're here?" he asked softly. Lily shrugged again, her small shoulders rising and falling. Maybe. Maybe not. He wanted to scold her, to tell her she should stay close to her mother, but the look in her eyes stopped him. They were filled with a fierce, fleeting desire, to live, to feel normal, even just for an afternoon. Can I sit with you again next time? She asked suddenly, hopeful. Daniel froze. He had spent years building walls around himself, pushing away anyone who tried to come close. And yet, looking at Lily's fragile smile, he felt those walls tremble. Yes, he said, surprising even himself. You can. Lily's grin widened, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt a flicker of warmth inside the cold emptiness of his chest. The rain outside softened, the world quieted, and in that little coffee shop, a bond was born, a bond neither of them knew would change everything. The next Saturday, Daniel found himself at the same corner table in the coffee shop. The cappuccino in front of him steamed faintly, untouched as usual. But this time, his heart wasn't heavy with silence. It was restless, waiting. He didn't want to admit it to himself, but he was hoping, praying, that the little girl with braids would appear again. And then she did. Hi, Daniel. Lily's voice chimed like a bell as she pushed open the door. The cold wind followed her in, but she carried with her such warmth that the room seemed brighter. Daniel's lips curved into a smile before he even realized it. Hi, Lily. She skipped to his table, balancing her hot chocolate carefully. Once again, she climbed onto the chair opposite him as though it was the most natural thing in the world. You waited for me, didn't you? She asked slyly, sipping from her cup. Daniel chuckled. Maybe. Lily giggled, swinging her legs under the table. I told Mom I was going to read in the library. She thinks I'm reading boring books right now. Are you? Daniel teased. Nope, Lily said proudly. I'm talking to you. Much better than dusty old books. Daniel shook his head, amused. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed laughter, real, unforced laughter. They spent the next few minutes in comfortable silence, sipping their drinks. Then Lily leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. So, what do you do all day, Daniel? Do you have, like, a cool job? Daniel hesitated. I'm an architect. Her face lit up. Oh, that means you draw buildings, right? Something like that, he said, surprised by her excitement. Can you draw me a castle? She asked eagerly. A big one, with towers and a bridge and a garden full of flowers. And a swing set. Daniel chuckled. That's quite a request. You can do it, though. I know you can, Lily said confidently. You have the hands of someone who can make things. Daniel blinked at her words. Claire used to say the exact same thing. The memory stung, but somehow, Lily's innocent faith in him softened the pain. I'll try, he promised. Lily beamed. Good. I'll keep you accountable. That's what friends do. Daniel froze. Friends. The word felt foreign, heavy, and yet, comforting. He had spent years running from connections, avoiding closeness. And here was a little girl, fearlessly claiming him as her friend. Friends, he echoed softly. Lily nodded, satisfied. Then her expression grew thoughtful. Do you have other friends? Daniel hesitated. Not really. Why not? She asked innocently. He took a deep breath. I lost someone. Someone very important to me. Since then, it's been hard. Lily's eyes softened. For a moment, she looked far older than her years. Was it someone you loved? Daniel nodded, unable to speak. I understand, Lily whispered. I might go away too, someday. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her not to say such things, to hold on to hope, but the calm acceptance in her voice silenced him. You're very brave, he said instead. She shook her head. I'm not. I'm scared all the time. But when I drink hot chocolate, or when I laugh, or when I talk to you, I forget for a little while. And that's enough. Her words hit him like a knife and a bomb all at once. This child, so fragile, so fleeting, was teaching him more about life than all his years of grief ever had. Do you have dreams, Lily? He asked softly, trying to steer the conversation toward lighter ground. Her face brightened immediately. Oh yes, I want to see the ocean. I've only seen it in pictures. I want to build sandcastles, collect seashells, and chase the waves until they catch my toes. Daniel smiled. That sounds wonderful. And I want to ride in a hot air balloon, she added with a dreamy sigh. To see the world from above, like a bird. He chuckled. You've got quite a list. There's more, she declared proudly. I want to plant a tree and watch it grow. I want to bake a cake without burning it. And, I want to be in a real castle, just once. Her innocence pierced him. These were such small, ordinary dreams, but for her, they were mountains. Maybe, Daniel said gently, I can help you with some of those. Lily's eyes widened. Really, he said firmly. We'll start with the castle. I'll draw it for you. And maybe one day, we'll find a real one. Her face glowed with happiness. You promise? I promise. For the first time in years, Daniel felt purpose stirring in him, purpose beyond surviving each day. As the rain tapped gently against the windows again, Daniel realized something profound. This child was not just passing time with him. She was breathing life back into him, stitch by stitch, word by word. And he couldn't remember the last time his chest felt so light. It had become a quiet ritual. Every Saturday, Daniel found himself sitting at the same corner table, waiting for Lily's small figure to burst through the door with her messy braids and her infectious grin. This time, however, something was different. Lily entered the coffee shop not alone, but with a woman. Her mother. She was in her mid-30s, with tired eyes framed by faint shadows of sleepless nights. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and her coat hung on her as if she'd forgotten to care whether it fit or not. She walked with the air of someone carrying a burden much larger than herself. Lily tugged her hand, whispering urgently, That's him, Mom. That's Daniel. Her mother's gaze followed Lily's finger and landed on Daniel. For a moment, suspicion flickered across her face. She stiffened, her grip tightening on Lily's hand. Daniel stood up awkwardly, unsure of what to say. He hadn't expected to meet her mother so soon. Mom, can I sit with him? Please. Lily pleaded, her eyes wide with hope. Her mother hesitated. She studied Daniel carefully, as though trying to read the story of his life in a glance. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but eventually, she sighed. 5 minutes, she said firmly. That's all. Lily beamed and darted to Daniel's side, climbing into the chair opposite him. See, I told you I had a friend, she declared proudly. Daniel managed a small smile. Hello, he said, looking at Lily's mother. I'm Daniel. She nodded stiffly, pulling out a chair at the next table but not sitting down. Instead, she hovered, keeping her eyes on Lily. I'm Anna, she said after a pause. Lily's mother. Her voice carried exhaustion, but beneath it was an unmistakable edge of protectiveness. Daniel nodded respectfully. It's nice to meet you. Anna didn't respond. Her gaze flicked between him and Lily, suspicion never leaving her eyes. Lily, meanwhile, was oblivious to the tension. She sipped her hot chocolate with exaggerated slurps, grinning. Daniel promised to draw me a castle. With towers and a swing set. Anna's lips softened slightly at her daughter's excitement, but her eyes remained guarded. You shouldn't bother strangers, Lily, Anna said gently, though her gaze was still on Daniel. He's not a stranger, Lily insisted stubbornly. He's my friend. The word hit Anna like a small blow. Her eyes narrowed. Lily, you can't just, she trailed off, exhaling slowly. She was too tired to fight her daughter's enthusiasm. Daniel leaned forward slightly. She's not a bother, he said quietly. She's a joy. Anna's brows lifted, surprise flashing briefly in her eyes. Then she looked away, as if afraid to let his sincerity sink in. For the next few minutes, Lily filled the silence with chatter, about school she couldn't always attend, about books she liked, about the dreams she'd told Daniel last week. Her little voice was a constant melody that wrapped around both adults, softening the sharp edges of the moment. But Daniel noticed things he hadn't before. The way Anna winced slightly every time Lily coughed. The way she kept glancing at the clock, as though time was always slipping away from them. The way her hand trembled when she adjusted Lily's scarf. Finally, when Lily ran to the counter to ask for extra marshmallows, Anna took the chance to speak. Her voice was low, but firm. Mr. Daniel, she began, I don't know who you are or why my daughter insists on talking to you, but I need you to understand something. Daniel straightened, sensing the weight in her tone. Of course. My daughter is very sick, Anna said, her voice catching despite her attempt at steadiness. Her time is uncertain. I've spent years keeping her safe, making sure she gets the care she needs. I can't afford false hopes, or strangers who don't understand what they're stepping into. Her words cut deeply, but Daniel understood. She wasn't being unkind, She was being a mother. I'm not here to hurt her, he said softly. She came to me. I only listened. Anna's eyes softened just slightly, as if his honesty disarmed her for a moment. But then she shook her head. Listening is easy. Staying is hard. And people rarely stay. The words lingered, heavy with a history Daniel didn't yet know. Before he could respond, Lily returned, holding her cup triumphantly. Extra marshmallows, she announced. Anna immediately straightened, hiding the vulnerability in her eyes. She brushed Lily's braid gently, forcing a smile. Eat slowly, sweetheart. Daniel watched the two of them, the fragile child and the weary mother, and felt something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he wanted to stay. He wanted to shoulder some of their weight, even if they didn't want him to. As they prepared to leave, Lily leaned close to Daniel. Same time next week, she asked hopefully. Daniel smiled, his voice steady. Of course. Anna hesitated at the door, her hand on Lily's shoulder. She looked back at him, her eyes searching. For the briefest moment, her guarded expression cracked, revealing the raw pain beneath. Then she nodded once, almost imperceptibly, before turning away. The bell above the door jingled, and they were gone. Daniel sat there long after they left, staring at the empty chair where Lily had been. His heart ached in a way it hadn't in years, but this ache was different. It wasn't just loss. It was the stirrings of something he thought he'd buried forever, the desire to care. Winter came quietly, laying its cold hands on the city. The cafe windows fogged with breath and steam, and the streets outside gleamed with frost. But for Daniel, the season carried a different chill, the chill of watching Lily's laughter slowly weaken. Their weekly meetings continued, but Lily no longer ran into the cafe with the same boundless energy. She walked slower, leaning into her mother's side. Her cheeks, once rosy with excitement, grew pale. Her smile was still there, but it carried a tiredness Daniel hadn't seen before. Hi, Daniel, she said one Saturday, sliding carefully into the chair. Guess what? What? Daniel asked gently. I got another treatment yesterday. Mom says I was brave. But I think bravery is just sitting still even when you're scared. Daniel's throat tightened. That sounds very brave to me. She grinned faintly. It hurt, but I kept thinking about my castle. The one with the swings. She tapped his sketchbook, which Daniel had brought along. That made it easier. He smiled, though his heart ached. I'll draw you a new one today. Bigger and brighter. Promise. Always. Anna sat silently nearby, watching them. Her eyes were darker than usual, ringed with exhaustion. Daniel caught her looking at Lily with a fragile tenderness, as if memorizing every detail of her face. As weeks passed, hospital visits became more frequent. Daniel began spending evenings at the hospital, sitting with Lily in her room filled with stuffed animals and drawings taped to the walls. Sometimes, she had energy, telling him silly jokes, asking him to read stories, making him sketch oceans and castles and balloons. Other times, she lay quietly, her small hand curled around his, her eyes heavy with sleep. One evening, as snowflakes drifted past the hospital window, Lily whispered, Daniel, can I ask you something? Of course, he said, brushing hair from her forehead. Will you remember me? Even if I go away? The question shattered him. His chest burned, his throat ached, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. Lily, he whispered hoarsely, I will remember you every single day. Forever. Her lips curved into a soft smile. Good. Because I don't want to be forgotten. You won't be, he said fiercely, pressing her small hand between his. Not by me. Not ever. Her eyes closed, content, and she drifted into sleep. Daniel sat there long into the night, staring at her fragile form, silently vowing to carry her in his heart no matter what. Anna found him there hours later, still by Lily's side. She stood in the doorway, watching quietly before finally speaking. She likes you, she said softly. Daniel looked up, his eyes heavy with emotion. I like her too. Anna stepped into the room, folding her arms as though holding herself together. You didn't have to be here. Most people would have walked away by now. It's easier that way. I don't want easy, Daniel said quietly. I want her. The words hung in the air, raw and trembling. Anna's eyes softened, glistening. She sank into the chair beside him. She's everything I have, Anna whispered. When her father left after her diagnosis, I thought I couldn't do this alone. But I had no choice. She's my reason to keep breathing. Daniel felt a deep ache for her, for both of them. He wanted to say something comforting, something strong, but all he could do was place his hand gently over hers. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Anna looked at him, startled. For a long moment, neither spoke. But in the silence, something fragile and unspoken passed between them, a shared grief, a shared love, a shared fear. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital rooms, soft laughter, and painful goodbyes disguised as ordinary moments. One day, Lily was well enough to sit in the hospital garden. Daniel wheeled her outside, wrapped in blankets, her cheeks pale but her eyes bright with wonder. Snowflakes fell gently around them, catching in her hair like tiny stars. "It's so pretty," she whispered, stretching her hand out to catch the flakes. "Do you think, in heaven, it snows all the time?" Daniel's throat tightened. Maybe it's even more beautiful than this." She smiled faintly. "If I go there, I'll build my castle in the clouds. And you have to promise to draw it, so people can see it." Tears blurred Daniel's vision, but he forced a steady smile. "I promise." She leaned against him, her tiny body trembling with fatigue. "I'm not scared if you're with me," she whispered. Daniel closed his eyes, holding her close, the cold snow falling softly around them. Days later, her condition worsened. Machines beeped steadily in her hospital room, nurses moved in and out with quiet urgency, and Anna barely left her side. Daniel sat with them, his hands trembling as he sketched one last castle, a castle in the clouds, glowing with light, surrounded by stars. He placed it gently in Lily's lap, whispering, "This one's for you. You're forever home." Her weak fingers brushed the paper. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "It's perfect," she whispered. And though her body was fragile, her eyes shone with peace. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the rhythmic beeping of Lily's monitor. The world outside continued, snow still fell, cars still passed, people still laughed somewhere, but inside that room, time seemed suspended, holding its breath. Daniel sat at Lily's bedside, her fragile hand resting in his. Anna was on the other side, stroking her daughter's hair, her eyes swollen from nights without sleep. Both adults wore the same expression, fear wrapped in love, sorrow wrapped in hope. Lily stirred weakly, her eyelids fluttering open. Her lips moved, but the sound was faint. Daniel leaned closer. "Hi, Daniel," she whispered. "Hi, Princess," he said softly, fighting back the tears that threatened to choke him. "I'm right here." She smiled faintly. "I had a dream, I saw the castle you drew. But this one was real. It was in the clouds, and there were swings that touched the stars." Daniel swallowed hard. "That sounds beautiful." Her small hand squeezed his weakly. "Will you finish it for me? Make it the biggest one you've ever drawn." "Of course," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'll make it perfect. Just for you." She turned her gaze to Anna. "Mommy." Anna's voice trembled. "Yes, baby. I love you. Don't cry too much, okay? I'll be waiting for you, in the castle." Anna broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead. "I love you more than anything in this world, Lily. You're my heart. My everything." Lily smiled, weak but peaceful. "Then we'll never be apart." Her eyes shifted back to Daniel. "Will you take care of mommy for me? Promise." Daniel's chest burned with grief. He nodded, tears running freely down his face. "I promise, Lily. I'll take care of her. Always." A soft sigh left her lips, and for a moment, silence fell. Then the steady beep of the monitor slowed. The nurse hurried in, checking vitals, but Anna already knew. She clutched Lily's hand desperately, whispering her name again and again. Daniel bowed his head against the mattress, his shoulders shaking. And then, just like that, Lily was gone. The little girl who had asked, "Can I sit here?" in a cafe months ago had left the world, leaving behind a silence louder than any sound. The funeral was small, intimate, filled with flowers and the gentle hum of quiet sobs. Daniel stood beside Anna as she trembled through the service, her eyes empty yet overflowing. When it was his turn, Daniel stepped forward with a framed drawing, the castle in the clouds, glowing with stars, with Lily's name written beneath it in delicate letters. He placed it gently on the coffin. "She asked me to finish it for her," he said softly, his voice breaking. "This is her forever home." No one in the room could hold back their tears. The days after were a blur for Anna. Grief was not loud anymore, it was quiet, heavy, pressing on her chest with every breath. She wandered the apartment like a ghost, Lily's toys still scattered, her little shoes still by the door. Daniel never left her side. He cooked meals she barely ate, sat with her in silence, held her when she finally allowed herself to cry. He didn't try to fix the grief, he just carried it with her. One night, weeks later, Anna sat on the balcony, staring at the stars. Daniel brought her a blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Do you think she's up there?" Anna whispered. "Building her castle." Daniel followed her gaze to the night sky. "I don't think she's just building it. I think she's already sitting in it. And smiling at us." Tears slipped down Anna's cheeks, but this time, they were softer. "She loved you, you know. She really did." Daniel's throat tightened. "I loved her too." Anna turned to him, her eyes shining with grief and something else, something new, fragile, and uncertain. "She wanted me to let someone in. She didn't want me to be alone." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. And for the first time in weeks, Anna felt a flicker of warmth in her chest, a reminder that though Lily was gone, her love still lived, still binding them together. Months passed. Seasons changed. The pain never left, but it softened into something quieter, something bearable. Daniel and Anna visited Lily's grave often, bringing flowers and leaving little drawings by the stone. Sometimes they sat in silence, sometimes they laughed, remembering her bright giggles and clever little remarks. And one evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pink and gold, Anna whispered, "I don't think I would have survived this without you." Daniel turned to her, his heart full. "You don't have to survive it alone. Not now. Not ever." Anna met his eyes, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that life could hold beauty again, even in the shadow of loss. They stood there, hand in hand, before Lily's grave. Above them, the sky glowed, and if they listened closely enough, they could almost hear a child's laughter carried on the wind. "Can I sit here?" she had asked once. And she had. And in that simple request, she had changed two lives forever. And though Lily's seat in the cafe remained empty, in their hearts, she would always be there, smiling, brave, and loved beyond measure.